Hey guys, chapter 7 is about developing an essay, revising an essay. So we're going to look at Emily's paper today, and we're going to just discuss some things that maybe she should consider revising or some things that she could do to develop this paper. So as we can see, the title is Banning Sugary Foods. That's a pretty basic title. She could enhance that or make it a little bit more specific or catchy. With that being said, let's look at her introduction and let's just think about some of the things that make a strong essay. Clarity, right? The use of language, style, right? Sophistication. How does this essay come across? So let's look at this introduction. Banning sugary foods within the United States will increase the chances for a better tomorrow. Every street in America is consisted of a Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, etc. chain that has a line wrapped around the building no matter what time it is. Americans thrive off artificial sugars and other toxic chemicals that are ingested into their bodies. The United States should ban sugary foods because of increased obesity, major health issues, and increased cost of health and dental care. All right. So the introduction, the student, as you can see, Emily, she starts to have somewhat of an address to some specific examples, Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, but it's still a little unclear, right? It's not super specific, right? Let's look at here's the thesis statement, okay? United States should ban sugary foods. She's got her 3 reasons: increased obesity, major health issues, and increased cost of health and dental care. All right, so even so, those examples aren't made really clear. Think about what she's talking about: increased obesity. But this introduction doesn't really lead into how sugary foods causes obesity, right? They're not well connected. Major health issues, increased cost of health, and dental care. So other major health issues, right? So it's just not very specific. Think about how to have a good introduction, explaining a little bit more about, really, what even sugary foods? She's told us about restaurants, Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts, but what do these restaurants have that are sugary, right? She didn't say a Frappuccino from Starbucks has, 400 grams of sugar, or a donut is how much sugar is in a donut. There's not really appropriate details in this introduction that really lead into obesity. What health issues, right? This is very vague. Look, an increased cost of health and dental care. But you know what? This introduction hasn't mentioned cavities at all. So there isn't a great flow of ideas here. There isn't a lot of style and language. It doesn't show that she really fully understands the topic that she's discussing. Let's look at her body paragraphs and let's question if the body paragraphs help develop the argument. Ultimately, eating foods that are high in sugar tend to cause addictions to some and has almost become a habit to many due to the addiction from the consumer, right? What consumer? So see, there already starts to be a lack of clarity. It can cause obesity towards one. Very unclear sentence. Not sure what she's saying. Obesity is one of the biggest issues America still faces to this day, and the problem is gradually increasing. While people become obese, insecurities start to set in, and soon people go to food for comfort and mental support. So see, there's an overall lacking clarity. The piece starts off discussing, right, this paragraph starts off discussing addiction, but then the explanation between addiction and obesity is not explained. And then if we remember back to our thesis, addiction isn't even mentioned in our thesis statement, right? So we want to think about that essay form, right, that overall essay form, right? Each of the 3 reasons addressed in the thesis should be a body paragraph, and that body paragraph should be proving each of those 3 reasons, right? Let's keep reading. As a result, people tend to purchase more sugary foods for comfort and reassurance that can eventually lead to long-term debt department, and a struggle to plan for next week's meal. With no money to purchase food, embarrassment settles in, and people will eventually miss family or friend activities and distant from social interaction. So let's go back to our thesis statement. The point I think that this paragraph is trying to prove is that sugary foods increase obesity. But this paragraph does not prove that sugary foods increase obesity, does it? It just rambles on about addiction, then obesity, then how people who are obese eventually miss family and friends activities. No, I think we all can, if we really think about it, and this is where critical thinking sets in. We stop and say, okay, how does sugary food cause obesity, right? And we think about how to thoroughly explain that, how to give some examples of sugary foods, right, and what they do inside the body. And I think we can all think about that. Let's look at the next paragraph. All right. Although eating sugary foods lead to obesity, eating these toxins do cause underlying health issues, among others. Anywhere from diabetes to death is a concerning problem that most do not seem to care about. So I would almost say that sentence is an error of fact, right? Diabetes to death? Yes, I would think many people are very concerned about death or diabetes. So this sentence almost is kind of awkward because it doesn't make sense. Being sent to the hospital multiple times a year will cause a ton of stress physically and mentally to the point where it will start to affect one's mental health. So this student makes a big leap. Remember, we want to think about the flow of ideas that we're presenting. We've just said people aren't concerned with diabetes and death, which is kind of a flawed statement. Then we jump right into saying being sent to the hospital multiple times, but there's no connection between sugary foods and diabetes, and then diabetes to needing to go to the hospital. So there's not a flow of idea. We really want to consider the audience and make sure that we're creating clarity by making sure we're explaining our ideas in the right steps. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead and let's look at this conclusion. To commence, all right, which I would say is kind of an awkward transition, right? Banning the production of sugary foods can limit the number of obesity, health issues, and increase of dental and healthcare. The United States will change drastically and would change the world altogether. I don't know that this student has proved that point, that this would change the U.S. or the world. Everyone would come together to help one another to ban these toxic foods and replace them with healthier options in homes and restaurants. So I know we didn't read the next 2 body paragraphs, or we didn't read the whole thing, but I think you can tell that this essay has a lot of issues. And this is a first draft for this student. So one thing I want you to think about, it's okay to write a really sloppy first draft. A lot of people do. But that's why it's so important to revise, right? Return to your essay and really look at the ideas. Maybe have a roommate or have another classmate, or even send your essay to me and I'd be happy to look over it for you. But take a chance to pause and look over, maybe get a peer review from someone and make some changes, make sure the flow of ideas are there, and revise and improve your essay. So I hope that this was helpful, and so happy revising, and I'll talk to you guys next time.